The state law HB 2720 is the ADU law, and it refers to homeowners' right to build accessory dwelling units on their property. HB 2928, signed into law in May 2025, focuses on ADU regulations at the county level. It mirrors many of the provisions of HB 2720, but applies specifically to counties, preventing them from imposing overly restrictive regulations on ADUs. Counties are required to adopt these regulations by January 1st, 2026, or the bill's default provisions will automatically take effect. In 2024, Scottsdale added local zoning wording specifying the housing laws do not apply to homes and properties within roughly a 10-mile radius from Sky Harbor Airport and Scottsdale Airport, thus exempting most of the city from the state law, including Old Town and South Scottsdale. State legislators cried foul and passed the new law, HB 2928, which forces Scottsdale to remove that airport restriction. The city will be hosting 2 open houses on August 11th and August 14th. Here is more information about Scottsdale's proposed ADU ordinance.
As a result of this new state legislation, Scottsdale now must amend its zoning code to comply with state law. An ADU is a subordinate, self-contained dwelling unit that is on the same lot as a main single-family residential dwelling of greater square footage than the ADU. An ADU is designed for living purposes and includes its own sleeping facilities, kitchen facilities, and sanitary facilities. An ADU can be attached or detached from the single-family dwelling. ADUs come in many shapes and styles. The most common include a self-contained living unit built as a detached structure, separate from the single-family home, as well as a self-contained living unit built as an attached extension off the single-family home. For example, an ADU can be either on the ground floor or a second-level addition. The difference between an ADU and guest house is simply this. The size of an ADU is limited to 75% of the main house, or 1,000 square feet, whichever is less. They must contain their own kitchen facilities. And an ADU can be rented separately from the main house. The state of Arizona grants cities and towns with local authority the ability to set zoning and land use regulations subject to state law. The new law differs from HB 2720 that was approved in 2024. The previous bill allowed certain exclusions from the new law applying to certain areas of the community. One such exclusion was land that is in the territory in the vicinity of a Federal Aviation Administration commercially licensed airport as defined by state statute. Scottsdale had portions of its community was impacted by land in the territory of both Phoenix Sky Harbor and Scottsdale Airport. HB 2928, however, now clarified, only applies to areas with specific noise impacts in proximity to an airport. Thus, this law expands the ability for ADUs to be constructed citywide. With the passage of the bill, Scottsdale must now update the zoning code to remain in compliance with the new state law. If the city does not comply by January 1, 2026, HB 2928 outlines that accessory dwelling units shall be allowed on all lots or parcels zoned for residential use in the municipality without limits. The previous law allowed land in the vicinity of an airport to be excluded. However, the new law only allows areas with specific noise impacts to be excluded. The graphic on the left highlights, in red boxes, areas of the community that are currently restricted from constructing ADUs under the 2024 exclusions. The graphic on the right reflects the new legislation, with those previous exclusions removed, leaving only the area immediately surrounding Scottsdale Airport's runway, shown in blue, excluded under the new provisions of the bill. As a result, for those properties in yellow, 1 attached and 1 detached ADU per single-family property would be permitted. For those properties 1 acre or more in size, shown in maroon, a third detached ADU would be permitted if at least one of the ADUs is an affordable unit. The city must allow 1 attached and 1 detached ADU per single-family property. Allow a third detached ADU for parcels that are 1 acre in size or greater, if at least one of the ADUs is an affordable housing unit. Allow the size of an ADU to be 75% of the gross floor area of the single-family home or up to a maximum 1,000 square feet, whichever is less for the first ADU. If there is a second or third ADU, they cannot individually exceed 500 square feet in size. The city cannot Prohibit the short or long-term lease of an ADU. Require familial relationship between the owner of the main home and ADU occupants. Require on-site parking for an ADU, or fees in lieu of parking. Require an ADU to have an exterior design like that of the single-family home. Require more than 5 feet of distance from the rear or side of the ADU to the property line. Require improvements to the public street as a condition of allowing the ADU. Require permits, licenses, or conditions between private parties for use of the ADU. Finally, the city cannot require an ADU to contain a fire sprinkler system. Homeowner associations may continue to be more restrictive than cities with regards to ADUs. Homeowners are encouraged to review their covenants, codes, and restrictions for any further requirements or prohibitions regarding ADUs. Further, the city must require an owner of an ADU that is used as vacation or short-term rental after September 14, 2024, to reside on property. Finally, the city is proposing to restrict size of multiple ADUs, as well as ensure sufficient water supply and sewer capacity is provided. Formal action must be taken to update the city's zoning code. The city began this update process with the city's Planning Commission initiation of the Zoning Code Amendment in July 2025. 2 public outreach meetings will be held on August 11 and 14. The Planning Commission will hold a recommendation hearing on August 27. The amendment will then go to the full City Council for their consideration, review, and possible action in October 2025. The city must have these new rules adopted into its zoning code by December 31, 2025, as per state law. Visit scottsdaleaz.gov, keyword active planning cases and permits, and reference 4TA 2024 number 2 in the case number field, or link with the QR code provided. To see the full version of HB 2928, the topic of this presentation, which requires the city to amend its zoning code, review the proposed draft zoning code amendment that addresses both HB 2928, provide public comment and stay up to date on the public hearing schedule, and continued opportunities to provide public input.